complete the square, what's the first thing I need to do in this problem? Divide by 3. My coefficient in front of that n squared has to be 1. So I am going to divide everything by 3. And so what I'm left with is n squared plus 7/3 n plus 7/3 equals 0. And now, what do I need to do? Move the 7/3 to the other side. So I have n squared plus 7/3 n equals negative 7/3. Okay, look at your paper that I handed you with the steps. What's the next step that I'm going to do? Multiply what by half? This 7/3, the value with the n. So we take the 7/3, we multiply it by a half, and we get 7/6. And what did I say to be able to find that again? What do we do to it? We cloud it or highlight it or do something so that we're going to recognize what we're doing. Okay? All right. What do I do with the 7/6 now? Take 7/6 and square it, and we get 49 over 36. Okay, what do I do with that value? Add it to both sides. So now what I have is n squared plus 7/3 n plus 49 over 36 equals negative 7/3 plus 49 over 36. So this factors into n plus what? Yeah, it's that cloud value, which is n plus 7/6 quantity squared. It's the same parentheses occurring twice, so we're just going to simplify it and write n plus 7/6 quantity squared. Does that make sense? All right, on this side, get your calculator out. What is negative 7/3 plus 49/36? You're going to want to make sure you're putting it in right. Negative 35/36. Negative 7/3 plus 49 over 36. Right? Because that's 49 over 36 is what I added to both sides. Right, Rachel? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. So I'm left with n plus 7/6 equals negative 35 over 36. What do I do now? Yep, take the square root of both sides. That leaves me with n plus 7/6 here. I get a plus and minus. I can take, what's with that negative? What's that going to give me? An I. Can I simplify the square root of 35? So that stays under the radical. And can I simplify the square root of 36? 6. Right? You can take the square root of a fraction by taking the square root of the numerator and the square root of the denominator individually. So what do I do now to finish this? So n is equal to this negative 7/6, because I'm moving it from the left side to the right, plus and minus I root 35 over 6. Nope. The book puts it in front. I always want to put it at the end, but make sure it's not under the square root, because it's no longer a rooted value. Okay? Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. This one can factor. What does it factor to? Which means my solutions are x is equal to and positive 8. Okay, but now I want to do completing the square. I'm asking you to do it all kind of both the same way. So this one is a little bit more like the left side of this paper, because the coefficient in front of the x squared is what? 1. So let's complete the square, and we should get the same answer. So I start with x squared minus 6x and set it equal to 16. I'm going to move the 16 to the right side. Okay. What's my next step? Negative 6 times a half. You always bring the sign with it, positive or negative. And that gives me negative 3. What do I do with this negative 3? I want to cloud it because I'm going to come back to it. And then what do I do? And remember, this value is always positive. Okay. What do I do with the 9? Add it to both sides. So now I have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 16 plus 9. This is a perfect square. We're going to write x and x, and what value do I put in here? It's the cloud value, minus 3. And so it's x minus 3 quantity squared is equal to 25. What do I do now? Square root of x minus 3 squared is equal to the square root of 25, which is plus and minus 5. So I get x minus 3 equals positive 5, and x minus 3 equals negative 5. So x is equal to 8, and x is equal to, and that's what we got up here. So you're going to have to read the homework or the instructions on the homework real carefully. They'll ask you to complete the square, or they'll ask you to factor. Okay? I need you doing it the right way. Okay. Let's try this one. Let's do the box method on this one. This is a factoring problem. And some of you aren't familiar with this one, so let's just do it. The box method says this goes in this first squared, this goes diagonally from it. Okay, and then what we do is we take the 3 times the negative 2, which is negative 6, and what we want to get is the coefficient of 1. So what are your factors of negative 6 that give you 1 when you add them together? Well, negative 6 could be negative 6 times 1. But when I add those two factors together, what do I get? Negative 5. I could say I have 3 and negative 2. That gives me negative 6. And when I add those two together, what do I get? That's the one that I want, because that gives me the right combination. It gives me negative 6 when I multiply and positive 1 when I add. And so these factors get placed into these two boxes, and it makes no difference which one I put where. So I'll put 3x here and 2x here. You just have to make sure that you're including an x with that number. Thank you. Okay, so what is common when I look between 3x and negative 2? What's common factor? Only 1, exactly. There's got to be some value that I can pull out, even if it's just 1. If I go from negative 2x and 3x squared, what's common in these two boxes? Okay, notice this 1 is a positive 1, because we took out 1, not negative 1. Okay, going this way, what's common between 3x squared and 3x? And what's common between negative 2x and negative 2? And it's determined to be negative because that value is negative. Okay? If the one closest to where you're writing these answers are negative, then you pull out a negative number. Okay? So if this one was positive, then I would just pull out a 2. Doesn't make any difference about this one right there. Okay? So my factors are x plus 1 and 3x minus 2. And so we know our solutions are negative 1 and 2/3. All right, so let's complete the square. Because I want you having the practice. All right, so what's the first thing I need to do when I'm going to complete the square? So what do I do? So that leaves me with x squared plus 1/3 x equals, I'm going to go ahead and take that 2/3 to the other side. What do I do now? 1/3 times 1/2 is 1/6. That's my clouded value. 1/6 squared is 1/36, and that's what I add to both sides. And so I get x plus 1/6 squared is equal to 25/36. Take the square root. And I get plus and minus 5/6 is equal to x plus 1/6. So I get x plus 1/6 is equal to 5/6. X plus 1/6 equals negative 5/6. So x is equal to 2/3, and x is equal to negative 1. I do the math. Okay? How are we doing? Do you remember completing the square now? Sort of. It's a lot of practice. Just doing the same thing over and over again until you figure out the pattern. Okay, quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You should all know this by now, and hopefully you do. Okay. Notice that all of it's over 2a. Not just the radical, but the entire thing is over 2a. All right, so the discriminant. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0. What do I mean by saying greater than 0? It means it's positive. Then I have two real solutions. I'm going to have 3 plus and minus 6, for example. If 36 is under my radical, I would have 3 plus and minus a value. If I have two real solutions, remember a solution also means it means it's crossing the x-axis, right? It's a root. A solution means a root. And it means an x-intercept. So my graph, a quadratic is in the shape of a what? Parabola. So if my graph is supposed to cross the x-axis in two places, it's either doing this or this. Does that make sense? It's got two solutions. I've got to clearly cross it in two places. So I'm saying it's either this type, so it's either going to point below, going down negatively, or positively. I'm giving you your options. All right, if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, less than 0 means what? No, it means negative. And negative is going to tell you you're going to have a what? If you have a negative value under the square root, you have an imaginary value, right? So you will have two imaginary solutions. Can you graph imaginary solutions? Do we have any places where the graph will cross the x-axis? If we don't have any real solutions, we can't graph these solutions, the graph isn't going to cross the x-axis ever, right? And so what we have is a parabola that is totally above, right? Or totally below. All right, if b squared minus 4ac equals 0, then we have no value under the square root, correct? There's nothing there. So I will go with how many solutions will I have? You'll have one. You'll have that a plus 0, right? Or that negative b plus 0 over 2a. You'll have all you're going to have is the b over the 2a part. Look up here. If this is all 0 in here, then it drops out, and I'll just have the negative b over the 2a. So I will have a solution. A real solution. And if I have only a real solution, 1, that means my graph is going to bounce. It's going to touch it in one spot and then go back down. It's not going to clearly cross it and come back up on another side. So you need to know this. You'll see this on a quiz or a test. Okay? All right, so find the discriminant and sketch a graph. This should be an X here. What's the discriminant? Hold on, give it to me with letters. Okay, and A is 4, and B is 6, and C is -3. So B squared, 6 squared, minus 4 times 4 times -3 is 36 plus, this is where you're going to make a mistake. You've got two negatives here hanging together on that second part of my problem. So it's going to change into a plus between the two answers, right? This is where you're going to make a mistake if you're going to make a mistake. And so 12 times 3 is, or 16, that's, I think, 48. And so I'm going to get 84. 84 is greater than 0. Tell me what kind of solutions? Two what? Two real. Because I can have two imaginary or I can have two real. So you have to specify what kind I want. If I have two real, look at this. Look at this. This is the shape of a parabola, pointed up or down. Okay. So how are you going to show me that you have two real solutions? Okay. Where is my vertex going to be? Above the x-axis or below the x-axis? Below, because I want it to open up. That's all the sketch that I'm looking for. You with me? Anybody got a question so far? Okay, so if I ask for the quadratic formula, then I'm going to have negative b plus and minus the square root. We know that that's 84. Didn't we just figure that out? All over 2a. So that's negative 6 plus and minus the square root of 84 all over 2 times 4. We want to keep this in root form. There are no decimals. Negative 6 plus and minus square root of 84 over 8. Can I divide everything by 2? Not yet, because this is this value under a radical. I cannot take a number that is not in a radical into a value that is in a radical. So this is 4 times 21. 4 is a perfect square, isn't it? What am I going to write here? Negative 6 plus and minus what? 2 square roots of 21 over 8. Because the square root of 4 is 2. Now I can reduce everything by 2. Negative 3 plus and minus root 21 over 4. And then this homework, probably have to look up. I don't think that's right. Okie doke.